Hello and welcome to the Intuitive Wisdom for Modern Transformation podcast. This is Dr. Morgan Oakes, and I'm so excited to be able to share this journey with you. I'm a transformational speaker, a high-performance coach, and a shamanic practitioner. I'll also be your host each week as we explore together the different ways in which people really get clear about what matters most, about how they're able to take courageous and inspired action, and ultimately transform and live their best life. I know that when I hear the stories of the amazing things that others have been able to do, it really inspires me and helps level up what's possible in my life, and I trust the same is true for you. Thank you for being here on this journey with me today, and let's dive in. Hello and welcome everyone to the Intuitive Wisdom for Modern Transformation podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Morgan Oakes. I'm so excited that you're here today, and today we've got a really special person on here, a great friend of mine, and my first podcast interview officially. So Devi, I'm so glad you're here. And I'm going to start off just by sharing a little bit about you so people know how amazing you are. So Devi Adea is the host of the successful Spiritual Entrepreneur podcast and the creator of the Podcast on Purpose Online Academy and the Consciousness Upgrade. Devi's a seasoned speaker, podcaster, and spiritual business coach and strategist. Devi works with spiritual entrepreneurs, thought leaders, innovators, and creatives to experience soulful living and true fulfillment by aligning their personal mission and message with a successful business and freedom-based lifestyle. She's an intuitive business strategist and helps her clients move to their next level by working with their consciousness that yields the results and contribution that they desire. Devi's a unique mix of spiritual entrepreneur, creative, techie nerd, and coaching genius. She brings all of her talents together to inspire, instruct, and guide others to fully express the voice of their soul through their own global podcast and or through a profitable business that lights them up from the inside and gives them a lifestyle that they love. Devi's a no-nonsense leader who believes that anything is possible with the right intention, focus, strategy, support, energy, consciousness, and inspired actions. So welcome to the show today, Devi. I'm so happy that you're here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really honored to be your first podcast, especially. I just love and adore you, and I'm really honored to be able to be in this conversation with you today and share with your amazing listeners that are coming to join us today. So thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. And what I think is really amazing is it was a couple years ago, maybe 2 years and maybe 3 or 4 months ago, that you and I were at a big personal growth and development event, Brendon Burchard event. And afterwards we decided to start hustling and what are we going to do? And you decided podcast was your path. And so you dove in, you launched a podcast, I think within, was it like a week or two after that?
Yep, it was
right. I mean, it was quick. You jumped into it. Every single week since then, you've done another one. And then the reason I have my podcast is you launched your Podcast on Purpose product. And, in a 3-day process, we were able to go from my idea to getting it up on iTunes. And so I'm really, it's been amazing to watch your process as you've been moving forward. And I'm so grateful that you helped me get mine launched as well.
Thank you. Well, I'm really excited about your show. I think you're an extraordinary leader. One of the things that I love is helping to launch leaders on their own platform, their own podcast. So I can't wait to see where you take this. I know you're already successful in so many other areas, and I can't even imagine the impact that your message through a podcast is going to have on humanity. So I really honor you for stepping up to the plate and doing this. It's fantastic.
Yeah, thank you so much. That's very kind. And, one of the things that I've been really impressed with you on, and it's a big thing that I like talking to people about, especially on this podcast, is I think there's so many people that they get stuck in a rut, or they're like, oh, this is who I am, I'm just going to keep being this person. And I really love people that they get clear about something and they courageously step into that next chapter of life. And I'd love to hear, you've made some big transitions in especially your business life. What did those look like? What were the pieces of clarity that came into you where you're like, hey, it's time for this next chapter?
Yeah. So as you know, I started my business journey off in corporate America. I worked in high tech for quite a few years. And I remember having this moment. I was sitting down, it was New Year's Eve, and I had written out my short list of things that I wanted to do before I passed on. And I found a list from 2 years prior. And I remember sitting there and looking at the two lists and thinking to myself, wow, they're the same list. In 2 years of my life, I've done nothing of the things that I say are most important for me to do before I die. right?
Yeah.
And so I scheduled one a month, and at the end of the year, I'd like ran a marathon, gone scuba diving, became a licensed skydiver, traveled Europe. I did all this stuff in one year. It was insane. And at the end of the year, I'm like, well, I did all the things on my list, but now what? So I've been making this money, doing this job, creating what I've been creating in order to someday have the resources to be able to do that list. And I thought to myself, I'd feel way more fulfilled than I did at the end of having that list checked off. Mm-hmm. And I remember just thinking to myself, well, what is it about? Like, why are we doing this work thing? Why are we doing this life thing? It was one of those moments of kind of awakening. And I went from there and I thought, well, maybe if it's not about just experiences, although they're extraordinary and open you up, and it wasn't about the money because I'd made enough money to be able to do what I wanted to do, I thought, well, maybe it's about contribution. And so I had another turn point where I went into coaching and I started looking at how I could be of contribution. I went to work for one of the leading software companies I was working for, but one of the leading coaching leaders in the industry. And I did that for a while, and I thought, I didn't feel it still felt like something was missing, like there was something inside of me that needed to be expressed. And I went through a really long journey of trying so many different things. And maybe if you're listening today, you can relate where you really are kind of seeking to share that gift. And there's this like nagging on the inside of your soul that's pushing on you, wanting you to create something, wanting you to do something. And you're not always that clear on what that may be. Sometimes it takes a moment of trying some different things and recognizing that maybe there's something that you're scared to share. Maybe there's some part of you that is a part of you that you're afraid that if people knew it about you, that they would criticize you or ostracize you, make fun of you, right? I think a lot of times we are held back less than by our fear of failure and more by our fear of disapproval or being ostracized. And so for me, I came to a point where I had hidden this deeply spiritual side of myself most of my life. I grew up in a family of mystics as well as very successful business people. And on the outside, our family looked one way, and on the inside, our family was a little different. And so, I hid the fact that I call it a clair family. I had a family of clairvoyants, clairsentients, clairaudience, people that had these other gifts. And it wasn't until I decided to actually launch a podcast and share that message on more of a global scale and come out spiritually on iTunes, that I started to feel that fulfillment. I started to realize, oh, wait, this is the voice of my soul that's here. This is what I'm here to express in this lifetime. This is how I'm meant to serve humanity. And the fulfillment for me came in the clarity of what happened when I went and I had the confidence to share that and just kind of courageously went for it. And it really took me just, one of the things I love about a podcast is you record it and then you put it out there. So I was terrified when I did my first episode. I was like, no, you can't tell that story. That's going to go out on iTunes. It's going to go out, what if people hear it that you used to work with? They're going to think you're nuts. So I ended up just pushing publish, and it was too late at that point. It was already out there, right? And then at that point, it was like, I started to get people that were guests on my show that would come in and listen and share. And I learned that people were out there expressing and experiencing the voice of their soul in big ways as spiritual entrepreneurs in the world, which is the podcast that I had launched, was The Spiritual Entrepreneur. Mm-hmm. And so for me, it really also gave me more, almost like it was a snowball effect for me. The more that I got to listen to these people and listen to their courage and their message and how they were expressing so fully, it basically built up the new confidence that I had and snowballed it into a place where I started to feel like, oh, okay, I get it. It's okay. It's safe. I can share this message. I'm not going to be killed. I'm not going to be thrown into a fire or something. I don't even know what my unconscious fears were at the time, but they were pretty strong and they were running the show. So, and now I've been, helping other people create their own platforms for sharing that unique message, that purpose, really podcasting on purpose, that purpose that they're here to share in a beautiful way. And moving through whatever that is, and then creating a profitable business around it. I really feel like that was a turning point for me when I was willing to move through that fear, move through, like real terror for me, and get out there and share in the way that my soul was meant to express.
Yeah. So. I love it. And you talk about that snowball effect, and I always say that, objects in motion tend to stay in motion. And yeah, you're really describing how that even, added synergy and just grew from there. Was there something that you were able to do? Because I think a lot of times it's how do we get that first initial step?
Yeah.
You know, is there something that clicked where you're like, okay, you know, because you had to go through a process of brainstorming and am I going to call this the spiritual entrepreneur, and what kind of conversations am I going to have? Was there something you did to help take those first courageous steps that got you to that point, you know, before having to, you know, hit publish?
Yes. So the deadline helped. So I was actually, I'd been doing a whole bunch of different things. So prior to deciding to do the podcast, I'd gone through and written a children's book, done a musical single, like taken yoga teacher certifications. I tried a bunch of different things, and I knew that I loved those things and those were fulfilling, but I knew something was missing. So I'm on a plane from California to Washington and back, and I listened to a podcast on podcasting. And I got back from DC, and I called my friend and I was like, Flavia, I want to do a podcast. And she's like, well, that's really funny you say that, because I want to do a podcast too. And I'm like, really? She's like, yeah. I'm like, okay, well, how long do you think it'll take us? And so we set a goal of 2 months, and we decided that we were going to do our shows. And our deadline was actually midnight when I launched my show. I had this, I'd set like a line in the sand of when it was going to happen, which really helped. Yeah. And then meeting you and meeting, you know, Aaron and everyone up at that event together, it was perfect because I was really seeking to come out and express this other side of myself. And I kept meeting people, and what I would find is we would have these really kind of behind closed doors conversations about spirituality, but no one was really leading with it. And I found that you all were very deeply spiritual. When we first met, we weren't talking about that. We were talking about internet marketing and other things, right?
Yeah.
But sitting around the table and getting to know everyone, I'm like, wow, these are like deeply beautiful, rich, and spiritual people. And they are so behind what it is that I'm doing. It was like, it was a real affirmation for me. So I felt like by putting that line in the sand of the deadline, meeting people that started to support that and speaking it very like, I started telling people, I told you guys, I want to do this show. I feel really called to talk about the 99% of what really creates success. And that is the consciousness behind things rather than just the tactical steps. Yeah. And you guys were so supportive and so loving and nurturing of me in that kind of fledgling place that I was in.
Yeah.
And so having that happen. And then for me, the deadline was great because I scheduled all of the things I could do other than my own first episode and publishing it. I did it the very last day. I said, you get 3 tries, that's it. Because you've got to get it done by midnight. And I recorded it, and I was like, okay, I've got to push publish by midnight. I've got this accountability with my friend, and I've committed to it, and I've told people that I'm going to do it. And so I've got to get it done. So that was really the thing that I think kept me on track for doing it. And I didn't even plan to call it the Spiritual Entrepreneur originally. When I was talking to my friend about doing the show, I'm like, I just want to do a podcast. I didn't know what it was going to be. And she's like, well, why don't you use the domain name that you've had for, 9, 10, however, it was like $2.99 when I got it or something, right? She's like, why not use that? Spiritual Entrepreneur. And I'm like, oh, I couldn't talk about that, right? Yeah. And so actually using it and having someone say, well, you get 72 hours to decide. You just have to pick. And so I ended up doing it because I couldn't come up with something better in 72 hours. And it's changed my life, right? So putting those little lines in the sand, I think really helps. And then just stepping over them and seeing what comes,
Yeah. I love that. I like that you had an accountability partner. It's easy for us to make less courageous decisions when maybe we're the only one that's aware of what's happening.
Yes.
Right. So I like that accountability partner. I love the deadlines, and I love just, those little steps that start moving you into it. You also were stating out loud,
yes.
saying what was true, creating that synergy, creating that intention. Yeah, I like it. And it's, it feels like a really huge way to pull off the Band-Aid. Right? Because I have some of that as well. Even how do I name this podcast and Intuitive Wisdom? And, I know I'm very spiritual with my spiritual people, and I'm very business-like with my business people. Yes. And having that crossover and having you in my life has been great to go, these actually work together. You can have power and heart. You can have both of those really dance together and create a beautiful mix. So, really wonderful. Now, with some of the clarity practices, and you kind of said, you got clarity, then you went through your bucket list, which it's kind of been burning me since you mentioned that. are there any things on your current bucket list that you'd be willing to share?
Yeah. So I'm writing a book. So I have a kid's book that's out. But I'm writing a new book out that's for adults that's going to be coming out hopefully by the end of the year. We'll see. Things are piling up. I'm like, okay, I want it by the end of the year. So maybe I need to create a new deadline for that. So I have a deadline because we're talking about deadlines, and yes, they work. So so really committing to it. Yeah. And I've been doing writing with some partners around that. I'm launching a new show. It's called Podcasters on Purpose. And so we just did our first episode yesterday. That's another bucket list for me, is having that show. I want to go to Mallorca. And you know those Mallorca? So there's this place in, I believe it's in Spain, that has these huts that have these clear bottoms, and you stay in these huts and they're in that water, and you can literally dive out of your room into the water to from where you're staying. So I have had for a long time, I've wanted to go to Mallorca. I want to go to Japan also with my husband. He speaks fluent Japanese, Andrew, but my husband speaks Japanese, and they have evidently these like these hot springs outside where the monkeys come in the wintertime and they like hustle in and get in the water with you. So I thought that would be really neat. I want to see the northern lights. I went to Alaska. I didn't see them when I went. They weren't out. So there's a whole bunch of different things I could tell you about that I want to do. I have a goal of really reaching and serving humanity in a large way too, like a certain number for myself of the people I want to uplift through the work that I do. I had someone on my show that was really inspiring, Dr. John DeMartini. He tracks how many people he reaches and serves. And I think they've done, I don't know how many billion, I think it's billion now that they've done through the years, because he's been doing it for a long time. But he said he wants to cover all the world population. He wants to serve everyone with the work that he does. And I think that's such an inspiring goal, to really serve all of humanity, as much as you can, like to be of service with that beautiful voice of your soul, what you're here to express and share. And so for me, because that's been the thing that's brought me fulfillment, is really sharing and expressing the voice of my soul. And I really feel like I'm here for realizing the truth of who I am anyway. Like that's my big life goal. Helping other people to do that has become a real big part of my mission and my journey, is helping people to recognize the consciousness behind what it is that they do and how it's truly creating their life, and how to bring that consciousness in a way that really serves the mix of humanity to really level us all up together. So. Yeah.
Well, I know you've got a huge vision, and I love that it's centered around heart, authenticity, and really connecting people to their highest passion and vision for themselves. And so I feel like I'm seeing that happening. I've been seeing the people you've been helping them launch their podcasts, and I'm seeing the people that you're reaching at live events and through everything you're doing. So, thanks. I'm loving seeing that happen. And so, you had some things that happened with clarity. And moving forward, are there things when you're looking for that next piece of clarity? What's that next thing to do? Are there any practices or tools or things that you utilize to work on your intuition or your clarity or getting clear about what's in your heart?
Yeah. So actually, I had this moment the other day where I've been rushing. You know how you can kind of get into the flow where you have so much. I think they call it flood when your business is growing from like a certain level to the next level. There's like flood that happens, and usually your systems aren't set up yet to manage all of the wonderful abundance of things that are coming your way, right? And so I was really like paddling, trying to keep up. And I have, I've started outsourcing more, and I have, people working with me now that I didn't have before. And so what I was finding is I was getting into the do part of life, and where we do a lot.
Yes, I know that. I'm familiar with that.
I was taking a lot of do, and I was doing a lot of actions that were really pulling me out of my conscious awareness. And I actually did the point where I was getting up early and falling out of my normal practice of, I do a form of yoga and meditation in the morning that has been my grounding force in the morning and the evening. And I was so doing that I was falling out of those practices that actually keep me present enough to then be able to have the clarity that I need and to be in touch with that channel of intuition that's there. And so I woke up in the morning and I had this moment where I was like, and it's a prayer I heard when I was growing up with my family, and I know this word can be a trigger word for some people, but it's basically, it starts with God, God, God. Like, and so I literally just, those 3 words were what came out of my mouth, was like, God, God, God. Like, and it was me reaching out and saying, please help me stay present and awake and aware of what I'm really here to do. Because I felt like I was getting pulled off course, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's really easy when we get driven by that kind of the unconscious parts of ourselves that we're here to heal. Like, I think all of us have core wounding and things that we're working through. For me, I love and approval. It's like something I seek like on an unconscious level a lot. Mm-hmm. And I have to shift it from recognizing that the love and approval doesn't come from out here. We are love, right? Yeah. The approval comes from within, and re-tapping in. And I think you can get really pulled out of center when you don't have those habits of checking in and remembering the beauty and light of who you are, right? Yeah. And so for me, I woke up that morning and I was like, please help me to remember. And I recognized, I was like, okay, so I need to really start shifting my consciousness again and getting that all of this flood that's happening is coming from that connection, right? All of the things that are happening in my life, it's the effect, not the source. The source is coming from inside, right? Yeah. And to set up the habits again. So I got back into doing my meditation practice, and having the time during the day now where I'm setting up the triggers that, the anchors in my schedule where it stops me. Like now I have it when I go to the restroom. It's a pause point in my day. Okay, whoa, wait, check in, right? Yeah. Breathe, remember, and so these little moments that you set up along the way, the nuggets in your day to reactivate the awareness of your connection. And then knowing, for me, like the shower for me is where magic happens. I go in there, I go in with a question, I walk out with an answer every time. It's like, it is a place, I don't know if it's like the water flowing over my head or what, but I just get all sorts of insights when I'm in the shower washing my hair. It's like the weirdest thing. So if, when I'm in the shower, remembering, okay, this is a great time, I can utilize this for some inner intuition. I'm going to ask the question I need. I'm going to go in and come out with my answer. Or just starting my day now that I've got my I call it a presence practice. I've noticed that every successful spiritual entrepreneur on my show, bar none, has a presence practice, whether it's running in nature, whether it's meditating, whether it's, listening to classical music and journaling. We had one guy who used to put a towel over his head and turn on the steam in the shower and take out some trade rags with the calculator. Uh-huh. And he would read the trade rags and then put the towel on and listen for intuition and then do the numbers, right? Huh. So whatever it is for you, it can look very differently for different people. Having that presence practice in the morning and setting up your day and being conscious and deliberate in what it is that you're wanting to do, I think it turns it more into a co-creative experience with your own soul. So for me, for example, I'll start off the day sometimes with I need some insight on this. Maybe I'll get it in the shower. Maybe I'll get it while I'm driving. But asking the question, asking for it, and then as I step into the day, listening. Staying present enough to listen, and then having people like you in my life that remind me to listen or can see things for me and remind me that that's something that I've been asking for, or remind me, of who I am and what it is that I'm wanting. So I think having those things in our environment and setting up our life in a way where we have those practices can really support us in tapping into that intuition and being guided. And lots of breathing. I use a lot of breathing during my life. As simple as that sounds, there's different ways you can breathe that will shift your awareness and your clarity in the moment too. If we're breathing really shallow and we're unconscious, a lot of times we're not really tapping in as much. If I go to the bathroom and I literally say, okay, just take a deep breath. Let go of everything to this moment and be present right here, right now. And I invite you, if you're listening in, to take a deep breath with us. This is life right here, right now. That's that moment, that richness, that juice. And that's where the clarity lives. Yeah.
I love that. It's, I noticed for myself, it's that balance between being and doing, and I can spend that time being, and then I get these amazing visions and this clarity, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm going to do this and this and this. And then you get so stuck in the doing that you've stopped listening. Yes. You stop being. And so, the bathroom is a place where I slow down as well. And I do, I'll do timer on my cell phone, so I'm stopping every hour, and morning practices. And still it feels like, and I think especially in our society, we're all doing. We know other societies that are really focused on being, and we're the Nike Just Do It society. So how do we slow down? How do we stay conscious? Yeah, and connected to that. So those are really powerful. Thank you for sharing those. So, and it sounds like, because a lot, the other piece that I like to talk to people about is, how do you sustain it? You know, you get that clarity, you courageously step into action, and then how do you sustain it? And it sounds like a lot of your clarity practices are also your sustainability practices. Are there other ones that you do to make sure that you can keep moving forward, that you can keep doing? Anything else you think is important to share with our listeners?
So I actually have a planner right now, but I usually will take a time where I schedule, like at the beginning of the month, to consciously create what I want to have happen that month, and then have check-ins. I have an accountability partner, huh?
Yes.
That would be you.
Yes. My favorite calls every week.
Yeah. So we check in and we keep ourselves present and really focused on what it is that's there. I think that really helps in being in a conversation in your life with people that are like that. And then literally just having visual anchors, like this is, I'm going to go a little bit off camera here, but like having things in your environment, like, you know, that just say things.
Yeah.
To remind you, like, that I have a rock I'm holding up on the podcast. You probably can't see this, but it says believe, right? And just having those little things in your vision, I think, can really make a difference too. Like putting little stickies for yourself. I remember one day I had forgotten, and I'm moving around here. Hang on a sec. But I was really nervous. I had an interview with someone that I was really kind of intimidated by, which happens from time to time.
Which is awesome. Yeah.
We put the power outside of ourselves, right? We like imagine that they have something. And so I literally took these little stickies and I wrote God on all of them. And I put them on my microphone, and I put them on the phone, and I put them everywhere around me, just to be reminded that that literally I was going to be talking and serving, you know, that beautiful source that creates worlds all day long. Yeah. And so one of the practices that I love to do as a way of really uplifting and sourcing people in my life, and one of the things why I feel like a lot of people will say when they're around me, they think they have things happen that they didn't think was possible, or they feel like they want to be the best version of themselves, is because I believe one of the most amazing things you can do for the people in your life is to witness the greatness inside of them. To spend your day, like when you're around them, even if you're like at a gas station, or if you're in line at the store, or if you're, you know, going into a meeting or going to get on stage and you're going to witness a group of people. I call it living namaste. If you know the greeting namaste, it's basically the light inside of me honors and bows to or acknowledges the light inside of you. Yeah. And so truly living in that way, when you're greeting people and witnessing that amazing light inside of them, that greatness, that voice of their soul, you magnify and activate that the more that you put attention and focus there. And so for me, one of my fundamental things is I like to serve that light in everything that I'm doing in my life. And so having that as kind of the forefront of the conversations, and having little stickies that remind me that's who I'm talking to and who I'm serving, right? It makes all the difference. So I think, like, really recognizing what your philosophy is. It may not be the same as mine. It may be similar, you know, but finding what your practices are and then really dialing them into your life in kind of a more grounded way, and setting up things to keep you conscious, because it's really easy to go in and out of consciousness in our life, especially when we get into these kind of patterns that we run that are from our past. I like to liken our mind to a computer, right? Mm-hmm. And so one of the consciousness upgrade that I talk about is really upgrading your system, if you will, your consciousness. So if you think about a computer, if it has too many programs that are running, like we have sometimes a lot of past programs, things that have happened that have injured us or hurt us, relationships where we are incomplete, where we haven't really, you know, we've left things undone, right? That kind of haunt us when we hear music or whatever. The things that run, that are kind of, if you think about your computer, too many things open, they suck up your CPU, you know, conscious processing units, we'll call them. But
I love that.
And they'll, and it causes your computer to not function well, right? I mean, I'm sure all of you have had, I know I have had the experience where my computer's like, you know, lugging along and you need a reset. So one of the things you can do is deinstall those old programs, remove them off your drive, right? And open up the space for new things. And if you're trying to download some resources and your connection to the net is not really hooked in and dialed in and really strong, it's tough to do that. So making the time in your day, like those presence practice, right? To really connect in to, we'll call it the divine cloud or whatever you want to call it, your own intuition, right? To be able to download those things, whether it's in the shower or in the toilet or wherever you are, right? To receive that guidance, and then moving forward, also like putting things on your program that optimize and give you the tools that you need to create what you need to create in your life. And then and just maintaining that system, it makes a huge difference. If you think about just your computer, you know, sometimes you need to deinstall things, sometimes you need to reboot them, sometimes you need to like upgrade your Wi-Fi connection, right? So that you have a different connection to your resources. And sometimes you just need to install some new programs, right? And we can all do that with our consciousness and how we live our life. And I think sometimes when those old programs are running, it's very tough to bring in the new consciousness. It's really going to support us in that full expression of the voice of our soul in the world and in creating the transformation that we're here to make, right?
Yeah.
So those are my thoughts around, like, you just got to maintain the system, and they're practices. They're things you live every day. You don't just do them and forget.
Well, and there were a number of things I thought of when you were sharing that, and I'm always looking at how different islands of information tie in together. You know, like, oh, well, here's 6 different groups that think they have nothing in common, but here's all the things that are true about this one item. And so as you're talking about that idea of like recognizing the divinity in others, you know, when we look at like neurolinguistic programming in the unconscious mind, when you're acknowledging those beautiful things about other people, your unconscious mind doesn't know you're talking about them. So we're not doing it for that reason. I think it also brightens our day, and I'll do that as well. Like, yeah, what's amazing today, and especially, you know, me living in Seattle, as it gets rainy, people are like, oh my gosh, the rain. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like I'm drinking more tea, I'm firing up my fireplace, I'm doing walks in nature with a raincoat, with a hot drink. You know, there's just, you know, what's that positive that you can look at? And I think there's a really great benefit that you receive from that as well, which is not why we do it, but it just, and then the higher you vibrate, the more vibrant you are, the happier you are, it just splashes over everyone and lifts them up. So I really like that. And I was in a conversation with somebody the other day that they were saying what they wanted to make sure was they didn't make it another year without doing what they had said they were going to do. And what I'm getting from you is really about being conscious and checking in and making sure that you're, you know, some of it's going to be business, some of it's going to be relations, some of it's going to be experiential, connection, you know, play, you know, and just grounding in so that you can actually enjoy the moments as they're happening and be able to track, you know, where you're going in the future. So yeah, so many powerful tools. I really love that framework with with the divinity cloud and
the consciousness upgrade framework.
Because you know, it's a really easy way to go, oh yeah, that's where that is. That's where I have that. Yeah, it makes it really easy to kind of see that in ourselves.
Yeah, so. It's so true. And I think that when it comes to having those things that are, you know, moving us forward in all the areas of our life, and having the framework already laid out can really, really help when it's already like preset and you're clear on what it's going to be for you.
Yeah. And a spiritual teacher of mine has said that, you know, dichotomy is basically where spirit lives.
Oh, yeah.
And so I like those dichotomies of you need to have a plan and structure.
Yes.
And you need to be fluid. You need to be thinking about the future, and you need to be present in the now. You need to be, you know, in a state of stillness and really allowing for that being time for all the information to come in. And you need to be in forward momentum. You need to be in action. So, yeah, I think it's that sweet spot of how do you keep all of those in balance so that life is magical, right?
Totally. Yeah. Totally.
Yeah. Very cool. Well, I've really enjoyed chatting with you. I always get a lot. Like you said, we're accountability partners for the last 2+ years.
Awesome.
You know, every Monday morning we're doing a call, and you have accomplished so much in that time that every week I'm like, oh my gosh, like, you know, I gotta keep hustling because she's getting these things done, and we're talking about what have we done, what are we planning on doing, where are we going, what's working, what's not working, and I'm so grateful for you. This podcast episode is happening because you stepped into podcasting a couple of years ago, because you created this product probably a year ago, and because I went through the process a month ago or whenever that was. And so just really grateful for you. And I'd love to hear, is there one last piece of advice? And you've given so much today, but is there one last piece of advice? If this was like you're on the podium, you've got, however many billion people we're at now in front of you, you've got that one last message to share with everyone, what would it be?
I would say really to honor the light that you are. Like really honor that you are a sovereign being. Like you are here with a gift and magic inside of you. And I think so many times we tend to doubt ourselves, or we compare, or we go through these situations where we discount the beauty and radiance of our soul. And I just really would invite you to remember who you are and to know that you are a gift to humanity, and that gift needs to be shared, and it needs to be shared in this lifetime by you, because it's a unique gift that you bring, and the unique mix of all of your, what I would consider like, the sides of us that we question, that we're afraid that people won't love. That thing about you is magic. And I just really invite you to share all of who you are, to fully live and express that gift in this lifetime, and to honor it, because it truly is a gift, and it's something that we're all waiting for, and we really need. So honor yourself, honor the light that you are, and bring your gifts out into the world in a beautiful way. And if you need support, there are people here to help you.
Yeah, really well said. There were times I was dropping in and I was like, oh my gosh, she's just talking to me.
Because I'm talking to each one of you. Yes,
I may just cut that piece of the interview out. I'll put it in the original, but I might just cut it out for myself and just put it on a loop on my phone or something before I go to bed. So.
And if you ever want me to remind you, just call me.
Yeah, really beautiful. And I know that people are going to want to know where you're at and learn more about you, and learn about your children's book and your adult book and your music and your podcasting. Where's the best place for them to find out all things Devi?
Perfect. So you can go to DeviAdea.com. That's DEV like victory, IADEA.com. And that'll have a link to my Spiritual Entrepreneur podcast. It's got resources if you're wanting to launch your own show. I have a studio recommendations guide on there that you can get, that'll show you how to set up your studio, and there's free webinars that come through that, and meditation audio, and all sorts of things that you can check out. And my kids' book is on there if you want to look for it. If you have an empathic child or a highly sensitive child, it really helps, because I grew up that way and I know what it's all about. So yeah, beautiful. Well, again, I want to thank you. You're always just such a light. I know that we end up at a lot of seminars together and spend a lot of time together, and people they love you and they flock to you because you're just so vibrant and joyous, and your heart is out there lighting up the room. So thank you so much for sharing that with our listeners today, and for being on the show, and for all that you do and be on the planet. So thanks, Devi. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me. And I really want to honor and acknowledge you, and thank you for who you be in my life and in the lives of so many people. You've really blown it up over the last couple of years too. I know you're talking about me, but I really am inspired by you every day, and the amazing gifts that you bring to my life really make it hugely better. So thanks for being in it, and for all that you be for the world too. Awesome. Thank you so much. Until next time, everyone, be well. Thank you for exploring intuitive wisdom and modern transformation with me today. If you enjoyed your experience, please rate, review, and subscribe to the show on iTunes. It really does make a difference. For those of you that want more information about having me speak at your company or event, or are interested in coaching directly with me, please go to drmorganoaks.com and send me a message today.